They whispered she'd never last. 1 woman, 100 men, and a desert waiting to break them all. Ravenwood wasn't training. It was trial by fire, where Navy SEALs and Marine recon candidates were torn down and rebuilt in the image of war. Sandstorms didn't just scour the Nevada ridges, they scoured souls. And in that furnace, Riley Morgan, 26 years old, daughter of a sniper who never came back from Helmand, walked forward, carrying not only her pack, but her father's ghost. From the tower, Vice Admiral Marcus Hale watched in silence. His hands, scarred from decades of service, gripped the rail. Washington had forced his hand the Athena Protocol, a political gamble to prove women could survive the pipeline into special operations. To Hale, it felt like progress painted over politics. Yet something in Riley's stride unsettled him. He wanted to dismiss her as untested, but instincts honed across 100 battlefields told him this story wasn't going to be simple. That day's trial was a forced march 20 miles of jagged ridges with 60-pound packs. The desert heat pressed like a hammer, stealing water from lungs and hope from muscles. Men twice Riley's size staggered, cursed, dropped gear. She did not. Each step was rebellion against the whisper she doesn't belong here. Her face burned, her shoulders screamed, but her hazel eyes never left the horizon. Colonel David Kane leaned on a battered jeep at the edge of the range. Watching her climb, Kane had fought in Helmand, had bled beside Riley's father, and had watched him die in an ambush that should have taken them both. Now he studied Riley with an expression no one else understood. Not pity, not pride, recognition. He knew the walk, the 1,000-yard stare of someone carrying more than a pack. By nightfall, the desert turned cruel in the opposite direction. Heat fled, cold ripped through thin uniforms, and candidates huddled under ponchos, cursing the wind. Riley sat apart, her hands trembling as she unwrapped a small brass compass. Its lid squeaked open, revealing an inscription etched deep. "Find your own north." Her father's only keepsake returned from Helmand. She pressed her thumb to the words, whispering to herself, "I will." The quiet didn't last. Shadows moved. Laughter followed. A boot kicked sand over her feet. "She thinks carrying her daddy's toy makes her one of us." Riley looked up not with rage, but with a steady calm that unsettled the men more than anger ever could. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any defense. In the tower, Hale turned away from the monitor. Tomorrow brought live fire drills, and Ravenwood had a way of stripping illusions bare. Yet deep down, he wondered if this candidate carried something even the desert couldn't break. Then Kane's radio crackled, sharp and urgent. A coded voice from Langley Athena candidate flagged, possible deployment window opening. Riley didn't know it yet, but Ravenwood wasn't just her proving ground. It was the doorway to a battlefield no training could prepare her for. You're watching Stories Unseen, where untold military stories come to life. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. The morning sun spilled gold across Ravenwood. But inside the compound there was no warmth, only steel, smoke, and the crack of rifles. The live fire drills had begun. Riley Morgan crouched low in the dust. Barrett Emrad braced into her shoulder. At 1,200 meters, the steel gong target shimmered in heat haze. She steadied her breath, adjusted for crosswind, squeezed, crack. A heartbeat later, the gong rang, beginner's luck. Someone muttered, but when Riley chambered again hit, then hit again. The silence that followed wasn't doubt. It was unease. Captain Ethan Rourke, arms crossed, watched with the expression of a man already sharpening the knife. He stepped forward, voice cutting across the firing line. "Don't be fooled. A bullseye doesn't make you a SEAL. Combat isn't just about shooting. It's about choices, ones that decide who comes home and who doesn't." His stare locked on Riley. She held it, unblinking. The drill shifted to the kill house. Corridors swallowed the candidates in darkness, broken only by muzzle flashes and the faint green glow of ANPVS 31 goggles. Instructors barked at their ears, forcing chaos into every decision. Pop-up silhouettes snapped up without warning. Riley flowed through the halls. Her SIG P320 snapped onto one hostile target single shot, clean center mass. Another appeared half-hidden. She pivoted, double tap, when smoke cleared. Her lane carried the lowest margin of error in the class. Instructors exchanged quick looks, but Rourke wasn't moved in the debrief. His voice was a rasp sharpened on old scars. You think war's about hitting paper? Try hauling your team 20 clicks with rounds chewing the dirt at your heels. Try calling in a bird while blood blinds you. Try telling a mother her son isn't coming home. The room went still. His words weren't insults, they were memories. That night came the hell run. 20 kilometers through soft sand. Packs loaded with bricks. The desert air seared lungs raw. Men dropped out one by one. Riley ran on. Shoulders screamed, knees buckled. But she kept moving. In her mind, her father crawling through Hellman dust, dragging wounded Marines. She clenched her teeth, not one step less. Colonel David Kane followed in a jeep, headlights sweeping the trail. He saw her stumble across the finish, collapsing face first into the sand. But even gasping, half-conscious, her hand never left the pack strap, as if daring anyone to tear it away. Kane's eyes narrowed. He'd seen that fire before, long ago, in another man named Morgan. The camp fell silent past midnight. Candidates sprawled against rifles, asleep where they dropped. Riley sat alone, compass in hand. The inscription glinted faint under the moon. Find your own north. Her chest still heaved from the run, but her resolve had only sharpened. She wasn't chasing her father's ghost. She was carving her own path. In the command post, Admiral Marcus Hale watched the feed. He wanted her to break, wanted proof this Athena Protocol was doomed. But the longer he studied her face steady under fire, relentless in suffering, the more unsettled he became. Then the secure line buzzed. Hale answered, clipped and formal. This is Ravenwood. The reply was Ice Black Ridge Pass. 3 agency operatives captured, hostile stronghold confirmed, 72 hours to execution, directive immediate deployment of Athena candidate. Hale's jaw tightened. It wasn't a request. It was an order. And Riley Morgan's trial by fire was about to leave the training grounds and step into war. Put it on the record, I object. Hale said into the secure line, copy SecDef directive. Non-discretionary. Athena deploys over my protest. The desert night at Ravenwood felt deceptively quiet. In Admiral Marcus Hale's office, nothing about the hour was peaceful. A secure line from Washington glowed red on his desk beside a one-page brief stamped classified. At the top, Black Ridge Pass. 3 agency operatives had been taken near the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Intelligence warned execution within 72 hours. The cave complex was layered, fortified, and surrounded by a hostile network too messy for a drone strike, too politically explosive for a conventional raid. Washington wanted boots on the ground, but not just any boots. They wanted proof. Hale's finger trailed the name typed in bold, Athena candidate Riley Morgan. He felt the old, familiar tug of obligation and distaste. This was not standard procedure. This was a field test dressed up as an extraction. This isn't a training exercise, he said to the empty room. Not loud enough for anyone but himself. They're forcing Athena out of the lab. The next morning, Riley stood in the briefing room, salt stiff from the hell run and wired with a kind of hard focus only exhaustion can sharpen. Around the table, Hale, stoic and burdened. Colonel David Kane, steady and watchful. Captain Ethan Rourke, arms folded, radiating a skepticism that looked dangerously like contempt. On the wall, satellite imagery filled the screen-jagged ridgelines, a valley carved like a wound. A compound dug into the cliff face. Red markers circled entrances, access roads, likely patrol routes. There was no easy approach. There was no comfortable fallback. You're asking me to deploy. Riley's voice was calm, but the pulse at her throat was loud enough to betray her. Hale's gaze was flat. He spoke like a man delivering policy from far above the fight. Washington has invoked the Athena Protocol. This is a field validation. They want proof the program works under real conditions. You're the candidate they chose. Rourke stepped forward, a flash of anger and practical fear. This is madness. She hasn't finished buds. If you send her in now, you'll be filing an obituary. Kane cut in before the argument escalated. His tone was low and direct. And what's the alternative? Ethan, let 3 Americans die on camera. They've asked for a tool the nation can trust. We either provide proof or we don't. Riley has the skill set. She's earned the chance to be judged in the field. Rourke's reply was blunt. Skill is not experience. Combat is a ledger of mistakes you pay for in blood. Riley's hand closed around the compass in her pocket. The brass was warm. Find your own north. She drew a breath, felt every eye on her, and answered quietly, I'll go. Hale didn't make the choice for her. He nodded once, the nod of a man who passes the political responsibility upward and the tactical burden downward. Everything after that moved with surgical speed. At the airstrip, Blackhawks sat under floodlights, rotors ticking like restless animals. Teams stowed breaching charges, loaded Harris radios, checked AN/PVS 31 mounts. Riley tightened the sling on her Barrett MRAD with practiced, unhurried hands. Kane leaned in for a moment, voice softer than the turbine hum. Your father taught me one thing in Hellman: courage isn't being unafraid. It's carrying the fear and moving anyway. He pressed a small, sealed envelope into her palm. If you get cut off, open this. It's a contingency, one path no one else knows about. Trust it. She felt the weight of the paper in her pocket like a second heartbeat, and, before she could ask, Kane melted back into the shadows of the flight line. Inside the Blackhawk, tension had a smell: sweat, oil, and the ozone of warm electronics. Riley sat shoulder to shoulder with seasoned operators who'd bled together before she was on any roster. They didn't accept her yet. Every one of them carried a private ledger of why she shouldn't be there. Rourke leaned close enough that his breath fogged the glass of her visor. One mistake, Morgan, one wrong trigger, and it's not just you. It's all of us. Understand? His voice was a blade. She met his stare with steady eyes. Crystal clear. The bird climbed. Beneath them, the desert unrolled into black ridges and a silver thread of a road. For Riley, it was the edge of everything she'd trained for and the start of something that would define her. Hours later, boots scuffed loose shale at Black Ridge's rim. Riley hauled herself to a position that gave a clear arc over the compound, through the scope. Lantern light bobbed. Patrols moved like parcels on a conveyor, predictable. Until they weren't. She counted routines, noted pauses, logged wind vectors on her kneeboard. Rourke's voice came over the earpiece. Team 1, moving to breach point. Morgan, overwatch, no mistakes. She steadied her breathing. Don't hunt the target. Let the target reveal itself. She heard her father's counsel. A ghost coaching her hands. A guard reached for a radio at his hip. Riley's crosshairs slid to the device. One shot, one chance. Crack. The radio exploded in a shower of sparks. The guard crumpled silently. The compound remained unaware. Minutes bought. Not given. Overwatch effective. She whispered, Copy. Rourke said this time. The surprise in his voice was plain. Darkness and movement kept the mission alive. Then headlights began a slow, inevitable cut down the cliff road. Riley's scope caught it first. Trucks bristling with fighters, winding toward the compound. At their center rode an armored vehicle with plated doors and a guarded flank. Her stomach tightened. Reinforcements, or worse, a high-value presence that changed everything. She keyed the mic. Convoy inbound. Estimate 15 fighters. One armored VIP vehicle, 5 minutes to contact. Across the comms. Urgency rippled. Hale's voice, 2 tiers up and distant, came through with the kind of strategic flatness that carries political consequence. Athena maintains overwatch. No deviations. Do not engage unless direct threat to exfil. Riley's finger hovered above the trigger. The armored vehicle stopped. The passenger door opened, and a figure stepped out calm, deliberate, ringed by guards. Not a local commander, not intelligence they'd been given. In those stretched seconds, she weighed 2 truths, the order from command, and the sight through her scope that said this compound was more than what they'd been briefed on. If she fired, the chain reaction could unravel the whole mission and possibly the program itself. If she didn't, the hostages might never see sunrise. Her breath slowed. Seconds narrowed to the decision point. Riley Morgan's finger hovered. The valley held its breath. One trigger pull would decide more than a raid. It would test whether Athena was an idea that could bear the cost of real war. The night in Black Ridge Pass was alive with danger. The convoy Riley had spotted turned the valley into a storm, waiting to break. Rourke's team had breached the outer compound, moving fast toward the hostages, while Riley kept her crosshairs steady from the ridge. Her breathing slowed. She lined up on the lead truck's mounted gunner, the moment the fighter swung his barrel toward the valley. Riley fired. The man dropped, and chaos erupted. Shouts in Dari echoed off the cliffs. Searchlights snapped on, slicing across the slopes. "Overwatch is hot," Rourke barked. "Suppress and hold them off." Gunfire roared. Tracers stitched through the sky. Riley cycled her bolt, cutting down one fighter, then another, but more poured from the compound. The valley wasn't just a prison. It was a fortress. Inside, Rourke's squad pressed through the narrow tunnels, dust choking the air. They found the hostages chained to steel posts, beaten and blindfolded. Rourke slashed the restraints, voice rough but steady. "On your feet. You're coming home." Explosions rumbled overhead. The earth shook. Riley's voice cut through static. Multiple contacts flanking east slope. 3 minutes. Maybe less. "Copy," Rourke replied, hauling one man over his shoulder. "Keep the roof clear. We're moving. On the ridge." Riley was pinned. Bullets chewed the rocks around her, shards slicing her cheek. She rolled behind a boulder, then swung her scope toward the armored vehicle in the convoy. The door opened. A tall figure stepped out. Desert robes draped over Western body armor, ringed with guards. Not a local commander. A VIP the agency had never mentioned. Riley whispered into comms, "Visual, confirm. This site isn't just a prison, it's a hub." From command, Admiral Hale's voice came across the long-range feed, clipped and hard. "Do not engage. Athena maintains overwatch. Stay on mission." Her jaw clenched. Orders bound her, but instinct screamed otherwise before she could decide. A rocket slammed into the ridge. The blast hurled her across the stone, ears ringing. She clawed back to her rifle, dropped the RPG team with 2 precise shots, and spat blood into the dirt. Still alive. She muttered, "Below." The squad fought toward the exfil point, dragging exhausted hostages as ammo ran dry. Rourke's voice came, harsh with urgency. "We won't make the LZ at this pace." Morgan options. Riley's hand went to the sealed envelope Kane had given her. She tore it open. Inside a hand-drawn map, marked with a red X 2 clicks south, beneath it. A single line in Kane's handwriting. "Backup bird staged. Last resort." Kane set a contingency. Riley said, "South Pass, 2 kilometers. I'll cover from here." Rourke hesitated. "Then copy. Moving south." The squad shifted course. Insurgents swarmed. Riley's rifle cracked again and again, smoke curling from the barrel. Her muscles screamed, but she didn't stop. Every shot bought them another few steps. Then came the breaking point. Overcoms. The Black Hawk pilot's voice cut in. "Tense and clipped enemy anti-air online. We can't linger. Extraction at South Pass. 2 minutes on station, no more. Rourke cursed. They were still pinned halfway down the slope, hostages stumbling in bursts of gunfire. Riley swallowed hard. Scope locked on the enemy flood closing in. She keyed her mic. "Rourke, I'll hold the ridge. You move them. You stay. You die." Rourke snapped. "That's not the mission," Riley said softly. "The mission is them." Static filled the line before Rourke's voice came back, ragged but resolute. "God damn it! Morgan, do it!" Riley shifted position, braced for her last stand. She opened fire, snapping shots in rhythm, forcing enemy rifles to swing skyward. Tracers slashed her cover, grenades thundered, but she stayed locked in. Every second stolen was another heartbeat for the hostages. "One more step," she whispered through clenched teeth. "Always one more." The Blackhawk's rotors thundered in the distance. Rourke's voice came sharp over comms. "We're at the South Pass. Where the hell are you?" But Riley didn't answer. She reloaded, steadied her scope on the armored vehicle. The VIP stood framed in lantern glow, guards tightening the circle. Riley exhaled, finger on the trigger. Crack. The screen cut to black. The valley burned with fire and smoke. Riley Morgan's last shot still echoed along Black Ridge Pass as the Black Hawk clawed into the thin mountain air, carrying Rourke's team and the rescued hostages away. Down below, one figure remained. Riley stayed on the ridge, the lone silhouette refusing to abandon her post. Every pull of the trigger was borrowed. Time seconds stretched into minutes, enough to secure the extraction. "Where the hell is she?" Rourke barked over comms, though his gut already knew the answer. On the ridge. Riley's world narrowed to crosshairs and heartbeat. The Barrett's barrel smoked, her arms burned, but she held fast. One more shot, just one more. Then the pilot's voice exfil secured, package clear. But Riley wasn't aboard. Her position collapsed. Fighters surged up the slope, muzzle flashes cracking the night. Shrapnel scored her arm, the sting sharp and hot. She stumbled back as the compass tumbled from her pocket, clattering against stone. Bloodied fingers closed around it, whispering the words etched on its back. "Find your own north." Then came another sound. Not distant thunder, not the departing hawk. This was closer, heavier, deliberate, the chop of rotor blades cutting through smoke. An unmarked helicopter descended like a phantom. The side door slid open, and Colonel Kane leaned out, steady against the gale. "Move." Morgan. She sprinted down slope under a storm of fire, boots kicking dirt, bullets sparking off stone. She lunged, caught Kane's arm, and was dragged into the cabin as the bird clawed skyward. Only then did she breathe. Kane pressed a firm hand against her vest, feeling the folded map still there. His voice carried pride beneath the grit. "You trusted it. You made it back. Back at Ravenwood." The debrief was clinical hostages recovered. Mission a success. The Athena Protocol had proved its point, but Riley barely heard it. She sat apart, compass in her palm, brass charred and scratched, still pointing true. The door opened. Rourke entered, helmet under one arm. He studied her in silence, the weight of unsaid words between them. Then, simply, "You didn't just hold the line. You carried us through. Respect." Morgan, for the first time. The wall between them cracked. Weeks later, under the Nevada sun, candidates stood rigid on Ravenwood's parade deck, leaner faces, sharper eyes, the forge of training and combat etched into every stance. Riley stood among them, boots aligned. Vice Admiral Hale strode the line, a box of silver tridents in his hands. One by one, he pinned them onto warriors forged by fire when he stopped before Riley. Silence deepened. He studied her, the woman he once dismissed as an experiment. Yet here she was, proof carved into bone and spirit. He pinned the emblem to her chest, voice low so only she heard, "You didn't inherit this. You earned it." Applause thundered across the deck. Riley exhaled, fingers brushing the cold metal. It wasn't just a badge. It was the compass of a life she had chosen to chart herself. That night, beneath desert stars, Riley sat with the battered compass. Its glass was cracked, but its needle still pointed north. She thought of her father, of the men who doubted, of the lives saved because she stayed when others would have left. Her journey had never been about proving them wrong. It was about proving herself right. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the act of moving through it. Legacy isn't what you inherit, it's what you choose to create.